Well, at Tech, I came in '66, and I was the tailback, and I played 4 years there, and then I got drafted by the San Francisco 49ers and played 6 years there as a fullback, and then I got traded to Chicago, played a year, and in the preseason tore my hamstring off, and that ended my career. That was the 8th year of being on a professional team. And so I was on injury reserve that year, and that was the finish of 1977. Well, I really enjoyed playing for Coach Tucker. He had a man with a lot of integrity, and he had a lot of good qualities. And it made it easy to be able to play with a guy. I'm a pretty well-driven team player, you know. And I have to play for my teammates and coaches, and that made it easy to have a coach that you enjoyed playing for. So, I mean, I'd have to say on that aspect, football-wise, that was really easy. Well, I grew up in northern Kentucky, and I went to high school at Dixie Heights. And how I got to Tech was a coach from Vanderbilt was recruiting me. And I didn't quite have the grades to get at Vanderbilt, so he said to go to Stanton Military Academy in Virginia. So I went to Stanton Military Academy. He coached there for a couple of years before we went to Vanderbilt. So I went there as a prep year to Stanton Military Academy, and in the meantime, this coach, Dick Stanfield was his name, was a defensive coordinator. He went from Vanderbilt to Tech. I never heard of Tennessee Tech, didn't know where it was, and I came to visit it from Stanton Military Academy. And to make a long story short, when I left that day on the bus, I looked back at the bus station. I said, I hope I never see this place again the rest of my life. And it turned out to be one of the better things that ever happened to me was coming to school here. I have a lot of stories I could tell you why, but it was just a good fit. Not really, but I tell you what, the one that I guess because there was so much emphasis put on, I remember I was going for 4,000 yards, and in those days that was a fairly big deal because freshmen couldn't play in the big schools at that time. So now freshmen can play 4 years instead of 3 years, and so they break that record quite a bit. But in those days, it was a big deal to get 4,000 yards, and the Lambda Chi, the fraternity I was affiliated with, was every week putting a big board up on the field, and they was making a big deal out of it. And we was playing Chattanooga at night when I broke that record. That's probably one of the most emotional days or plays of nights of football I had, because actually the records, you know, they would come and I wouldn't even know I had them most of the time, but that was always out there in the open, and you kind of like was glad to get it and glad to be over with it too, you know. So I guess I'd have to pick that one. Yeah. Well, right now I live in south of San Francisco. It's about 30 miles, and it's called a little town called Woodside. And at the moment, I am the president of the NFL Alumni Chapter of Northern California. I've been doing that for 25 years, been the president for the last 5 years. And I sell real estate in the area, residential real estate, and did some developing in different parts of the country. Yeah, I actually have a job with the NFL where I go and inspect the uniforms for the 49ers. Each team, a teammate of mine, Gene Washington, was working for the NFL, and they would send a player, or they'd send somebody from the front office in the NFL in New York to every game to inspect the uniforms. So he got an ex-player in each city to do the away team and the home team of that city. So I do it for San Francisco, MacArthur Lane does it for Oakland, and so on for the other games. So we help each other out if somebody can't do it. So I inspect the uniforms. I go 2 hours before the game, and so I'm involved that way. I'm Larry Schreiber, and that's where I landed.